Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this documentary, we will explore the longest glide of an airline without engine. Today I am going to show you a similar incident, which also led to an unpowered glide of airline, the case of Air Canada 143, which became also known as Gimli Glider. I am going to show you this unpowered airline almost showdown, a car racing show. On 23rd July 1983, Air Canada Flight 143 was cruising at the height of 41,000 feet, flying from Montreal to Edmonton. The flight was led by 48-year-old Captain Robert Pearson, a highly experienced former fighter pilot, and the first officer, Maurice Quintal, who was 36-year-old. Suddenly, a warning in the cockpit sounded. Indicating the problem with the fuel pump in the left wing, the pilot assumed it had failed and shut the pump off. Since fuel is stored higher than the engine can also be fed just by gravity, with some minor limitation. Just a few moments later, the same warning sounded again. This time indicating problem with the right fuel system. This led the pilot to believe that something was really wrong. They began the diversion of Winnipeg soon. After the left engine failed and the pilot prepared for an approach with one engine inoperative. Meanwhile, they are unable to start engine. They could not even finish the checklist before the second engine failed as well. Nothing powering aircraft electric generator anymore. The cockpit went dark and silent for a moment, and the cockpit voice recorded. The captain exclamation of the F word can clearly hear. Fortunately, in such a case, the pneumatic turbine of the aircraft deploys automatically. After a few seconds, there is a small propeller that is driven by airstream around the aircraft, providing electric and hydraulic power. The pilot leafed through their checklist to find a checklist from unpowered flight, but found themselves in a situation that was never expected to happen and was not trained to simulate exercise. Hence, no checklist existed. The captain then guessed their speed for best glide angle, and the first officer proceeded to calculate their glide angle. He determined they would not make it to Winnipeg. At this point, the captain suggested to land at his former Air Force base, which saw below Gimli Airport. The pilot suggested this to air traffic control, who then provide direction for them. Unknown to control, the pilot was the fact that the Air Force base at Gimli had been decommissioned years ago, and the facility had been converted into a racetrack complex. While the aircraft was descending rapidly, the crew lowered the landing gear by gravity. Since hydraulic system did not work normally anymore, the two main landing gears stuck locked in a place, but the nose gear did not do so. While approaching the runway, Captain personally realized he was still and too fast for the approach, like the crew of Air Transit 236. They thought about flying 360, turned to loss altitude, but found themselves just too below for that already. Instead, Pearson opted to fly a so-called forward slip, the first officer that is usually never flown in commercial airline, but is commonly used when flight glider to execute. This one must force apply on the rudder in one direction and the aileron on the other side, leading to the cross control. The aircraft then flies in a straight descending line, but being in at an angle, the fluid provides a large amount of drag in that state, increasing the sink rate. Thanks to the captain was able to fly the aircraft on an ideal path to the touchdown. Approaching the runway, he only realized late that there was at the far end of the runway. The captain later remarked seeing two boys on the bicycle just 300 meters away from the projected point to the touchdown, and he said he could look of fear in their eyes as they realized there was an airliner bearing down on them. But they were able to escape in time. Many of the visitors of the motor show only realized very late what was happening, since the plane visually made no sound during the approach. After touchdown, the captain applied full emergency brake. The nose of the aircraft slammed into the ground without the nose wheel extended. Additionally, braking forced to the full stop, just about 30 meters short of the sun chamber and tent belonging to the attendees of the motor show. The aircraft was evacuated and nobody was seriously injured in the accident. The investigation has followed soon found out the plane had run out of fuel as the plane tank was completely dry. But how could it happen? The investigation found no sign of fuel leak. At the time of accident, the plane 767 was one of the most modern aircraft and the plane type had only been introduced in Canada. The flight computer had made it one of the first airlines to be operated with the flight engineer sitting behind the pilots, monitoring the system, and the engineers therefore an entry and monitoring the fuel was no longer up to the flight engineers, but pilots to understand problem that led to unpowered glide. We must go back day before the accident during routine inspection on that day. A maintenance engineer found that the fuel gauge of the aircraft are not showing any value. This system consists of two computers monitoring fuel quantity simultaneously. They cross-check with each other to see if they are in agreement. If they don't compute the same value, no quantity displayed to fix this. It was permitted to shut off one computer, leaving the computer just one computer during the calculation and display fuel quantity. This is a loss of redundancy. Ground crew had also checked the measuring stick. If the indicated fuel quantity matched with the displayed value, this was done correctly by the maintenance engineer and the system worked properly for the day before the accident. However, before the accident flight, another engineer was assigned to cross-check the fuel quantity indicated by a single remaining system. The stick measurement when he had the cockpit he found work his colleague had done the day before confusing and not in line with his knowledge. He tried to rectify the error in the fuel system. While doing so, he activated the second fuel channel. The fuel indication was now blank again. Seeing this, he was not satisfied and decided to have the replaced. However, no space part was available and it was decided to fly again with one channel inoperative. When the engineers wanted to undo these changes, the fuel entered to the cockpit and the engineer got distracted, which led to him forgetting to deactivate one of the fuel channel again. So fuel gauges remained inoperative. Few moments later, the Captain Pearson entered the cockpit. As he entered the cockpit, he consulted the manuals and found out the aircraft was not allowed to fly in that condition. He talked to engineer who assured him that the maintenance department had checked the plane and it was indeed legal to fly in that condition. With that out of tune determined the fuel load for their flight and found it to be 20,300 kilograms. This information then passed on the ground crew was informed the plane still contained 7,600 liters of fuel. To match these two values, the fueler had to convert the measurement from kilograms to liter. However, at the same time, most airlines in Northern America used to provide fuel load in pounds. The fueler then used the wrong coefficient to calculate the load he refueled to the plane to the fuel load of the 20,300 pound, not in kilograms, which was just about half of the required fuel load. When cockpit crew rechecked the fuel value, they made exact the same mistake, not discovering the error. Normally, the flight management would have been the last line of defense showing that he loaded the fuel quantity was insufficient to reach the intended destination. However, since the fuel gauges were entered inoperative, they did not send any information to the flight management system. The cockpit had entered the fuel load of 20,300 kilograms by hand, which led to the system believing enough fuel was loaded for the trip. The chain of events led to an airline carrying 69 people running out of fuel somewhere in the skies of southern Canada. Captain Pearson was first recommended for his flying skills, but later temporarily demoted to the first officer for his mistake, and the other two members, including first officer, was suspended temporarily as well. After appealing to the Air Canada, Captain Pearson and the first officer both flew until to the regular end of their career, and the accident aircraft was repaired and was able to flown out of Gimli. 2 days later, it continues to fly for Air Canada until it eventually retired after 25 years of service in 2008. Thanks for watching. If you liked our video, do like and subscribe and join our family.